Dear children, welcome to biology online classes. So, in the previous class, we were studying about heredity and variation, that chapter, and little bit is left also. And as this chapter is coming, that is chapter 8, how do organisms reproduce, comes for your post midterm exam. Let's have a quick revision of this. Okay, so do you know what is reproduction? The process by which an organism produces another organism of its own kind is called what? The reproduction, and it is not necessary for an individual to survive, but for a species to survive, it's very important. We have seen, isn't it? Then, how they form the copies of their own, okay, because we have studied that DNA is the genetic material, and this DNA is containing the information for making the what proteins, isn't it? And if any changes happens in the DNA, that will be affecting the protein synthesis, and likewise, okay, the basic event in reproduction is creation of a DNA. Understood? So DNA will be forming another copy of it, and this copies will be what passed to the next generation, so that what the characters of one organism can be passed to the next one, isn't it? So like this, what the copying of DNA is a very important thing in what reproduction. Understood? And here there can be some changes, okay, during DNA copying, because no biochemical reaction is absolutely reliable, so there can be some differences, and this results in variation, isn't it? So this variation is very important for the evolution process, isn't it? So because variation, okay, in sexual reproduction is much more than asexual reproduction, and this is the reason sexual reproduction is preferred by nature over asexual reproduction. Means in higher organisms you can see what sexual reproduction, because it produces what variation. What is variation? Differences, isn't it? And like this, if there is lot of variation, nature selects, okay, the best variety, and that results in the what evolution process. And we have then studied about the reproduction methods in unicellular organisms like amoeba, leishmania, etc., isn't it? How they reproduce by fission. Binary fission means a single organism divides into two, isn't it? So this is called what? The binary fission, isn't it? And then plasmodium is an example where multiple fission happens. What is multiple fission? A single organism get divided into a number of fragments. Then what is fragmentation? Where you can see this in Spirogyra, isn't it? Spirogyra, when it matures, it breaks up into smaller pieces, and these pieces or fragments will grow into new individual, isn't it? So this is fragmentation. But multicellular organism, they cannot afford this kind of what simple types of reproduction methods. Why? Because they are having cells aggregated to form tissues aggregated to form organs, and organ systems, likewise body is well organized in them. Okay, so in this kind of organism, what this binary fission or simple methods of reproduction is not possible. Okay, so they have to adapt some more higher types of what the simple cell division will not be enough for them. Okay, so regeneration is happening mainly in what? Hydra, planaria, etc. Okay, if you cut the organism into a number of pieces, and each piece grows into a complete organism, this is called regeneration. And this regeneration, okay, is done with the specialized cells, and they form mass, and then they undergo differentiation, okay, and form what? Various tissues. Okay, so so like this, what they undergo, what? Reproduction. Then budding is what mainly found in hydra. In this, what happen? Hydra forms a outgrowth, and this outgrowth get detached from the what parent organism, or that outgrowth is called what? Bud will become what? Elongated, or they grow and they get detached and grow as a new organism afterwards. Okay, then vegetative propagation is found in plants, isn't it? Means the vegetative organs like root, stem, leaves, etc., if they undergo reproduction, or if they are taking part in reproduction, then that is known as what? Vegetative reproduction, isn't it? So you can see this in what? Various parts, by using various parts. For example, bryophyllum, in which what? Leaf is taking part in reproduction, isn't it? Potato, there what? Stem, tuber is taking part in reproduction. Sugarcane, roses, etc., what? Their stems, understood? And this property we can use, means artificially we can induce them. Okay, for example, grafting, budding, etc., are examples of artificial vegetative propagation, isn't it? In artificial vegetative propagation, like grafting, what we do is we take a rooted plant as the stock and we can add a zone, isn't it, into it, and then they will grow into a new means plant. Understood? Then have you heard about tissue culture? It's what? Also known as micropropagation. Okay, and here you can see from a small part of a plant, okay, a group of plant, mass of plant called callus is formed, and then this callus will get differentiated into different parts and they will grow into new organism. Then in rhizopus you can see what? A spore formation. Okay, there you can see the what? The hypha is what? The vegetative part of the plant. Okay, means a part of this fungus. They grow straight and form what? The sporangiophores, and at the tip of them sporangia are seen, and inside that you can see the spores are produced. The spores will get developed into new organism or new individual organism when it get a suitable substrate. Then sexual reproduction is what in which both the sexes, both males and females, are needed, and then there will be gamete production, there is fusion, okay, there is meiosis. So all this are there in sexual reproduction. Okay, so you can see that the variations produced in sexual reproduction is much more than that of what? The asexual reproduction, because two parents are involved. Meiosis is there, where what happen? Exchange of genes fragments takes place. So because of all this, there can be much variation in case of what? In case of the sexual reproduction. Understood? So like this we can see what? Sexual reproduction is more favorable for evolution to take place. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So we know what are the parts of flower. You have to go through this. Okay, so the essential parts are there, non-essential parts are there, and the essential parts are what? Stamen and pistil. Stamen is the male part and pistil is the female part, isn't it? And inside the pistil you can see what? Ovary, style and stigma, and stamens will have anther and filament. Anther contains what? Pollen grains. Okay, and this pollen grains contains what? The male gametes, isn't it? And then the ovary will have ovule and ovules will have egg. Okay, the male germ cell produced by the pollen grain, okay, they fuses with the female gamete and produce what? Zygote. Okay, and the zygote will be present inside the ovule. So when a flower matures, what will happen? The seed is formed from the ovule and the fruit will become, means they are formed from the ovary. Okay, and what is pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called what? Pollen pollination. And it's of two types. What are they? One is what? Self pollination, means if the pollination is taking place between means between the male gametes and the or pollen grain and the stigma of the same flower, or between the two flowers of the same plant, then it is self pollination. And if it is between two different plants, then it is what? It is cross pollination. Okay. And then what we learned, I told you already in the seeds. Okay, you can see what cotyledons will be there, which serve, okay, which stores food for them. And the embryo, zygote will develop into what? Embryo will have which parts? Plumule and radicle. Plumule will be the future shoot, means it will grow into the future shoot, and radicle will form the root. Understood? So about reproduction in plants you understood. Then we learned about the reproduction in human beings. Okay, so we have seen that certain changes that happens in the adolescence period that make a person, okay, mature, means that through that the person's matures for the sexual reproduction, isn't it? And we learned that changes and all we have discussed, that you have to read. Okay, then male reproductive system and its parts we learned. And the male reproductive system mainly consists of, what is the major function of it? They produce what? The sperms, the male gametes called the sperms, and also they produce the hormones. So the major parts in the male reproductive system is what? A pair of testes, which are placed outside the abdominal cavity, isn't it? Abdominal cavity. And there is a there is a scrotum which covers this, and that is present outside the abdominal cavity because it requires a lower temperature than the normal body temperature, isn't it? Then what is the function of it? They provide what? The they provide the the gametes, or they produce sperms, and also they produce the hormones, okay, testosterones. Okay, then there are some ducts called vas deferens, which unites with a tube coming from the urinary bladder, and the urethra is formed as a common passage for both sperms and urine. Okay, so along the path of vas deferens, there are some glands. What are the glands? Prostate glands, seminal vesicles, etc. And what is their function? They add secretions to the sperms so that it will form a fluid like structure, and that is called the semen. Understood? The sperms are what? The male gametes. They carry the what? The genetic material of the male. Then a female reproductive system consists of what? A pair of ovaries, isn't it? And then what? The vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tube, etc. Okay, so ovary is the place where you can see the eggs are getting developed. Okay, and then the sperms enters through the vaginal passage. Okay, and it travels through the cervix. Through the cervix it will pass through the uterus. Okay, cervix to the vagina to the cervix, and then uterus to the fallopian tube. And in the fallopian tube only what happens? The fertilization happens. The fertilization happens in the fallopian tube. And after fertilization the zygote will form, and zygote will start its development there, and they undergo divisions. Okay, and they will get embedded in the lining of the uterus. That process is called implantation. Okay, and but the mother's body is designed to undertake the development of the child, isn't it? So there is a tissue which nourishes the baby. Okay, that is called the placenta. Okay, so it's a disc-shaped tissue embedded in the uterine wall, and it contains villi on embryo side, and on mother side they are having blood spaces. Okay, so into the blood spaces of the mother's placenta, the villi like, okay, the villi of the embryo side will be what? Embedded, so that what? The materials can get exchanged between the mother and the baby. Okay, if the egg is not fertilized, what will happen? It will lead to menstruation. That is, the lining of the uterus will become they degenerate and they falls off. Okay, if the fertilization does not happen, and that is known as the menstrual cycle. Then we learned about the reproductive health, isn't it? So we have studied that. Okay, it is very necessary to keep a uh, reproductive healthy society. Okay, so otherwise it can lead to what? Various diseases. Like, have you heard about AIDS, syphilis, then gonorrhea? All these are examples of sexually transmitted diseases. So AIDS is caused by HIV virus, and some other ways also it can get transmitted, isn't it? How? Uh, by transfusion of by the transfusion of blood, or by sharing the syringes. Okay, then from mothers to baby, etc., also it can get transmitted. Then example of gonorrhea and syphilis, they are also examples of STDs caused by bacterium, and HIV or AIDS is a viral STD. Okay, then we have studied about the contraceptive methods, isn't it? Like barrier methods are there which will not allow the meeting of egg and the sperms. So condoms, okay, are examples of this. Okay, so one additional advantage of this barrier method is it will also prevent the STDs. In addition to acting as a contraceptive, it can also prevent what? STDs. Okay, then there are some other category of contraceptives which which acts by changing the hormonal balance. Okay, so that the eggs will not be released during the correct time. Okay, so there are oral pills or vaginal pills. Okay, then another type of contraceptive device that can be used is copper T. Okay, they are placed in the uterus so that pregnancy will not happen. Okay, so these all are what? Temporary methods. Temporary methods means when the couple needs to have the children, they can have the children once they use the above said methods. Now surgical method is a permanent method where what happen? The removal of a part of the reproductive system, that is a part of fallopian tube. If it is cut in females, that is known as tubectomy. Okay, and if a part of vas deferens is cut in males, that is known as vasectomy. So vasectomy and what? Tubectomy, they are what? They are the permanent methods of contraception. Means once the couple adopt this, they cannot have children. Understood? So these are what? Various contraceptive methods. And we have also heard about female feticide, means killing of the female child in the mother's body itself. That is called what? Female feticide. Okay, so because of this only, sex determination is prohibited in India by laws. Okay, means this can lead to what? Female feticide can lead to what? Child sex ratio will be declined. Means the male and female child's ratio can be altered. So prenatal sex determination is prohibited in India. Okay, so all this topic, I think it's very clear. You just go through the textbook properly, okay, and see all the diagrams. It will be helping you to get full marks in your biology exam. So all the best, children. Do it well. Thank you.